filled the air as I walked into our family home on Christmas Eve. I was wearing a simple black sweater and jeans, designer labels hidden on the inside where my status-obsessed family wouldn't see them. Sarah finally decided to join us. My sister Victoria's voice carried from the living room, dripping with false sweetness. She sat perched on the expensive couch she'd bragged about financing, her real estate agent husband Thomas nodding beside her. Traffic, I said simply, setting down my small bag of modestly wrapped presents. No point mentioning I'd been delayed closing a multi-million-dollar acquisition. Let them think I was still the struggling financial advisor they loved to pity. Oh honey, Mom emerged from the kitchen, eyeing my simple outfit and minimal jewelry. You really should have let us help you with a new Christmas outfit. Victoria's boutique had such lovely sales. I suppressed a smile, thinking of the closet full of haute couture in my penthouse. I'm comfortable like this, Mom. Well, comfort is important, she replied diplomatically, though her expression suggested otherwise. Especially when times are tight. Dad looked up from his newspaper, concern etched on his face. You know, Pumpkin, I heard the financial advisory business is struggling. If you need help making ends meet. I'm fine, Dad. I settled into an armchair, checking my phone discreetly. 3 missed calls from my assistant Jessica. Probably about the mortgage company acquisition we'd finalized this morning. Victoria leaned forward, diamonds glinting on her wrists. Speaking of fine, wait until you see what Thomas got me this year. Show her, darling. Thomas produced a small blue box, and Victoria made a show of opening it to reveal a substantial sapphire ring. To match the necklace from our anniversary, she gushed. It's lovely, I said, thinking of the jewelry collection in my safe that would make her baubles look like costume pieces. And what about you, Sarah? Victoria's smile turned predatory. Any special gifts this year? Or are we doing homemade again? The room grew uncomfortably quiet. Last year I'd given everyone hand-knitted scarves. Not because I couldn't afford better, but because I enjoyed knitting. They'd assumed it was a sign of financial hardship. My phone buzzed again. Jessica's message read, Urgent, Morton Brothers mortgage acquisition complete. You now own their loan portfolio. I froze, then slowly looked up at my family. Morton Brothers held most of the high-end mortgages in our area, including... Actually, I said carefully, I did buy myself something rather nice this year. Oh. Mom perked up hopefully. A new job interview suit perhaps? Something bigger. I checked Jessica's detailed message. Yes, there it was, 427 Maple Drive. My parents' address. Along with Victoria and Thomas's McMansion on Sterling Lane. Victoria laughed. Don't tell me you finally got that promotion to senior advisor? The one you've been chasing for 3 years. I smiled, remembering the day I'd bought the financial advisory firm I supposedly worked for. They still thought I was a junior employee, not knowing I'd signed their paychecks for the past 2 years. Not exactly, I replied just as my phone rang. Excuse me, I should take this. In the hallway, Jessica's voice was excited. Ms. Walker, congratulations. You now own their house. Both houses, actually. Should I send the updated portfolio? I glanced back at my family, still admiring Victoria's ring. Perfect timing, Jessica. And yes, send everything. I think it's time for some truth at Christmas dinner. Back in the living room, the annual tradition of examining Victoria's excessive Christmas decorations was in full swing. Crystal snowflakes caught the light, probably costing more than what they thought I made in a month. Sarah, Mom called out, who was that on the phone? Not bill collectors, I hope. Her attempt at humor made Victoria snicker. Actually, I settled back into my chair, opening the files Jessica had sent. It was my assistant confirming a purchase. Assistant. Thomas scoffed. Since when does a junior financial advisor have an assistant? Dad lowered his newspaper. Sarah, you haven't been taking out loans, have you? You know we've always said dash. That debt is the devil's handcuffs, I finished. Yes, Dad, I remember. Just like I remember the lecture about my modest career choice 3 Christmases ago. Victoria adjusted her sapphire ring. Well, someone has to say it. We're worried about you living in that tiny apartment, barely making ends meet. Interesting assumption, I replied, pulling up the mortgage documents on my tablet. Tell me, Vic, how's the mortgage on Sterling Lane? Still paying that hefty 4.8% interest rate? Her smile faltered. How did you dash? Know that? I turned to our parents. And Mom, Dad, that refinance you did last spring with Morton Brothers Mortgage? The one that had you so worried. Dad sat up straighter. That's private financial information. Not to the owner of Morton Brothers, I said quietly, turning my tablet to show them the acquisition documents. As of. I checked my watch, 43 minutes ago. I own the company that holds all your mortgages. The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria's perfectly manicured hand shook as she reached for her wine glass. That's impossible, Thomas finally sputtered. Morton Brothers is a multi-billion-dollar company. I corrected. Now it's part of Walker Financial Group, along with several other companies you might recognize. Mom's face had gone pale. Walker Financial, but that's my company, I nodded. The one I built while you all thought I was struggling as an advisor. Turns out those long hours weren't just about chasing promotions. Victoria stood abruptly. This is absurd. You live in a one-bedroom apartment. Actually, I pulled out my phone showing them pictures. I own the entire building. I keep that one bedroom for appearances. My real home is the penthouse on the top 3 floors. But all those homemade gifts, Mom whispered. Because I enjoy making them, I said simply. Not everyone needs to flaunt their wealth, Vic. Thomas was frantically checking something on his phone. His face went ashen. She's telling the truth. Walker Financial Group. They're everywhere in the financial news. The stealth acquisitions, the technology innovations. He looked up at me in shock. You're that Sarah Walker. Dad's hands were trembling as he picked up the mortgage documents. All this time, while we were offering to help you, I was building an empire, I finished. One that now includes every major mortgage and investment firm in the region, including the one that finances your real estate company, Thomas. Victoria collapsed back onto the couch. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? I asked. 3 Christmases ago you all laughed when I said I was working on something big. 2 years ago, you suggested I try teaching instead of wasting time in finance. Last year, Mom cried because she thought I couldn't afford a proper winter coat. The crystal snowflakes threw rainbow shadows across their shocked faces as I continued. I learned something valuable watching this family. Money isn't about sapphire rings or crystal decorations. It's about power. And while you were all showing off your financed luxuries, I was quietly buying the companies that financed them. My phone buzzed again, Jessica, with more acquisition details. But before I could check it, Mom spoke up, her voice small. What happens now? With our mortgages? I looked at my family, really looked at them. The sister who'd mocked my career choice, the brother-in-law who'd patronized me at every turn, the parents who'd worried I was wasting my potential. Now. I smiled, reaching for my modest gift bag. Now we open presents. But first let's talk about those interest rates. The grandfather clock in the hall chimed 9 as my family sat in stunned silence, their forgotten mugs of eggnog growing cold. Mom kept glancing between me and the Walker Financial Group documents displayed on my tablet, as if one of them might suddenly vanish. I don't understand, Victoria finally said, her sapphire ring twisting nervously on her finger. If you're so successful, why pretend? Why let us think you were struggling? I took a deliberate sip of my eggnog. Remember when you first started in real estate, Vic? How you insisted on telling everyone exactly how much you made on each sale. She flushed. That was different. I was establishing myself. No, I corrected gently, you were showing off. I watched how people reacted, how they either resented your success or tried to take advantage of it. I decided to try something different. By deceiving your family? Dad's voice carried a hint of anger but mostly confusion. By observing, I replied. Do you know how many deals I've closed because people underestimated me? How many companies I've acquired because their CEOs thought I was just another junior advisor? I smiled. Even Morton Brothers never saw me coming until it was too late. Thomas was still frantically researching on his phone. The Trades magazine calls you the ghost of Wall Street, the invisible billionaire who built an empire without anyone noticing. Billionaire. Mom choked on her eggnog. I pulled up my company's current valuation on the tablet. The number made Victoria's sapphire ring look like something from a gumball machine. But your apartment, Mom began, is a cover, I finished. Just like the modest clothes, the simple car, the whole carefully crafted image. The real me. Well, let's just say my art collection alone is worth more than both your houses combined. Victoria stood suddenly. I need some air. Sit down, Vic, I said firmly. We're not done. Remember last Christmas when you made that comment about my bargain bin watch? She sank back onto the couch as I pulled up my sleeve, revealing the subtle gleam of my actual timepiece. This is a Patek Philippe. It's worth more than your house. I bought it the day after you made that comment, then kept wearing the Timex just to see what else you'd say. Why are you telling us now? Dad asked quietly. I pulled out my phone, showing them the latest acquisition details. Because as of today, Walker Financial Group doesn't just own your mortgages. We've acquired controlling interest in the regional bank where you've worked for 30 years, Dad. The same bank that passed you over for CEO last month. His face paled. You mean? The board meeting is scheduled for January 3rd, I confirmed. They'll be announcing a new CEO. Care to guess who? The silence was broken only by Victoria's shaky breathing and the soft clink of ice in forgotten drinks. All those Sunday dinners, Mom whispered. All those times we lectured you about success, about following your sister's example, were incredibly enlightening, I finished. Nothing teaches you about human nature like being underestimated by your own family. I stood, smoothing my simple sweater, actually hand-knitted cashmere that cost more than Victoria's monthly mortgage payment. Now about those presents. I reached into my bag, pulling out small envelopes for each of them. Consider this your real Christmas gift. Inside you'll find new mortgage terms. 0 interest, principal reduced by half. I paused, enjoying their shocked expressions. Consider it my way of saying thank you. Thank you. Thomas sputtered. For what? For teaching me the value of invisibility. For showing me that true power isn't in what you display, but in what you quietly build while no one's watching. I smiled. Every time you mocked my career, every time you flaunted your financed luxuries, you motivated me to work harder, grow stronger, climb higher. Mom was crying now, Dad's arm around her shoulders. Victoria stared at her sapphire ring as if seeing it for what it really was, a symbol of the shallow success I'd rejected. The company Christmas party is next week, I continued casually. Black tie affair at the Walker Tower downtown. You might have seen it, the new building with my name on it. I watched recognition dawn on their faces. You're all invited, of course. Time to meet the real Sarah Walker. My phone buzzed one final time, Jessica confirming the bank transition details. I stood gathering my things. Where are you going? Victoria asked, her voice small. Home, I replied. The penthouse, not the cover apartment. I have some calls to make. Time zones wait for no one when you're running a global empire. At the door I turned back one last time. Oh, and Vic? That sapphire ring you've been showing off? The one Thomas surprised you with? I smiled. Check the company that financed it. You might recognize the owner. The door closed behind me on their stunned silence. Outside, my driver waited with the Bentley I never used for family visits. Home, Ms. Walker? It's James. And call Jessica. Tell her to start the paperwork for acquiring Victoria's real estate firm. Consider it my new